Hello, everybody. Good morning, and thank you for joining us at the SiGMA Roadshow. Really excited about this series because a lot of great topics ahead of us and some great talent on stage. We have both Tonya Roedell and we have Jessica Welman ahead of us, and I'd like everybody to, for a second, to take a minute and introduce themselves. Tonya, would you mind taking a second and introducing yourself, please?
Perfect. Yes, I'm Tonya Roedell, and I'm the president of Broader Reach Consulting. I've been in the gaming industry for about 17 years, half of which was within operations at Caesars Corporate, and the other half with Aristocrat Technologies. I've been with Broader Reach for about 6 months now, and really enjoying working with a variety of different clients.
Great. And Jessica, if you don't mind, please.
Sure. My name is Jessica Welman. Like Tonya, I've been in gaming for a while, about a dozen years. I've done some time with Caesars as well, working under the World Series of Poker umbrella, but currently I am the new markets director for Catena Media, which is an affiliate company with a pretty big US presence. So I have been staying busy running all of our state level sites as we launch new markets in Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, Colorado, Virginia, and others.
Perfect. And I'm John English. I'm going to be moderating this this great panel here with these experts of gaming and marketing. And from my side, I have been in the gaming business almost 38 years now. And I was the first to have mobile wagering, first to have kiosk wagering. We own the largest footprint in the United States, which we sold to William Hill. And we are now developing new strategies for the US. But with all that being said, I would rather just get straight to my experts and let's get the information everybody needs. Today, our topic is about online gaming and the transformation for Nevada. So I'm going to ask everybody their thoughts about where we're heading in Nevada. I can give you my own. I think it's inevitable. I think that at some point we do need to have online gaming. We are seeing most of our major companies jumping in already. We've got Wynn, we've got Boyd, we've got Caesars. Most of the people have involved themselves in either online gaming in some sorts or social gaming at some point. And what I'd really like to do is cover where we're headed, where we're going, how long it'll take. We'll start at the end with a little bit of predictions of what we think will happen in terms of how long it will take us to have online gaming in Nevada. But you know, let's start with a couple of thoughts as to where we are now and why Nevada has taken a little while to catch up, I guess I would say, to New Jersey. Some of the other states have already offered online gaming. Granted, we have a lot of competition across from each other. We have Wynn across the street from Resorts World. We got Caesars across the street from their own properties. So let me start with, you know, Nevada's always been known as the bar, top listed company or the state, if you will, for online gambling, for everything. We were the first to have sports betting online, which we're glad to be proud of or part of. And now I'm thinking of where is next for Nevada and for online gambling. Jessica, do you want to go first and talk a little bit about that? Yeah.
I think you kind of hit on a key piece of this here, which is that forever Nevada has been the gold standard. And now, you know, you have New Jersey outpacing them with handle for sports betting every month. And when we talk about in the online gambling space of online poker, online casino, and online sports betting, when I talk about it with my peers, New Jersey is who we talk about as the gold standard. I think Nevada is kind of losing some of that positioning as a gaming leader. And if they want to, jump back out to be the innovator, the head of it, that, coming up with a sports betting model that does not involve in-person registration and expanding to allow online casino is a pretty necessary step to be taken seriously in that capacity.
I happen to agree with that quite a bit. I mean, my opinion moving forward is we definitely, it's inevitable. I think at some point we will need to have online gambling here in Nevada. It's been tough during the pandemic and everything else as well. And we also have had a change in the industry with Las Vegas Sands, which is pushing very hard against online gambling. Tonya, would you like to give us a little bit of your thoughts on where we're headed with online gambling?
Absolutely, yeah. So Nevada holds that distinction of being the first in mobile sports betting. And there's a variety of different devices and platforms out there, and Nevada's already vying for these betting dollars each and every day. You mentioned, MGM and Caesars and all the major brands, all have the Sportsbook app available and are doing online gaming from that particular perspective. We don't have online gaming today. And I know it's all a little bit complicated whenever you start looking at the Wire Act and some other components. However, it really mentions it as being interactive gaming, not a particular game. And the operators sometimes have the argument of, okay, well, if we create online gaming, we're going to start losing that wallet of our customers. You have that fear of monopolizing and jeopardizing the revenues that you get today. But really, what I've seen from my experience and from a lot of the analysis that I've done with operations that have online casinos, and then also from a social standpoint, and then also casinos that have online gaming. Well, truly what you'll find is that engaged customers are your most loyal. They're going to give you that share of their wallet. And by opening up another channel within the industry of online gaming, it's really going to expand much further, because the data that I've seen is that people will still go to the physical casinos and gamble. They also will get into play for fun, social casinos. I mean, with the pandemic, you could see that many of the major operators and major manufacturers have had a form of online social gaming. Well, those revenues really kind of supplemented the revenues that they lost from the land-based side of things whenever either the casinos were closed or they were shut down to 25-30%. So absolutely, I think it's been proven that online gaming is successful and it's good for the state overall and nation.
That's great. And you know what I would really like to do is so people know who they're talking to and where they're at. Jessica, would you mind giving a quick overview of your history in the industry?
Sure.
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead, Tonya. That's fine.
Okay, my bad. I was a Caesars corporate and I managed customer lifecycle management, taking a look to find out how you could really maximize that wallet for all the players, and take a look from a data science to be able to figure out, well, how do you get players more engaged and come to this casino and be involved across all channels, mobile, social, web. Then I went to the manufacturing side and helped develop the platform for free to play. And I worked with a variety of different casinos in that particular space to help them maximize the free to play to be able to drive in casino gaming.
Great. I mean, perfect for this topic. And Jessica, you as well?
Yeah, so I came up in poker, and poker is really where my heart is. So I was actually with WSOP and Caesars Interactive when they deployed real money gaming in Nevada and when they did their launch in New Jersey. So even though I wasn't on the real money gaming team on the ops side of things, I did get to see a lot of what was going on and how we would market it at live events as a supplement to what the live event was offering. And then in my current position, you know, you've been talking about the monopolization argument. I feel like in the 4 years or so that I've been with Catena, we have seen it die down a little just because New Jersey and Pennsylvania have provided us with so much evidence that this is an augmentation of your offerings. It's not a cannibalization, you know? And so seeing month to month with the revenue reports in Michigan, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, I've just come to form a pretty strong opinion about online gambling as appealing to a different set of people. Although I would say in Nevada, you know, it is a tourist state. It's a little bit of a different makeup, but that's my experience with the other states that leads me to some of these conclusions.
No, it's a great conclusion too, by the way. I also feel in my thought process that it's necessary for Nevada. We need to stay ahead. We need to stay abreast of all the things that are happening in the technical world. Knowing that New Jersey's moving forward, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, Tennessee, lots of different states are moving forward in that direction. It's important for us, I think, for Nevada to stay ahead of some of the areas that are there. So, I mean, you know, historically, I guess, you know, we've had some issues with some of the land-based casinos, whether it's cannibalization, whether it's, you know, we're competing against each other or competing against a market. Was one market a land-based market competing against the online market? Where in other areas like New Jersey, they work in tandem, and it seems to be working really well. And revenues are flowing in, and things seem to be working really well. Jessica, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of hit on it, that the last time we really seriously talked about gambling expansion in Nevada was when we did legalize online poker and didn't do anything with online casino. And it was just such a different makeup then, because, you know, Caesars really was the one with the positional advantage that nobody else had in the World Series of Poker brand and the strength behind it and their, you know, experience with online casino. Now that, you know, Sheldon Adelson has passed, Sands is moving out of Nevada, and that now all of these gaming companies have a multi-platform online gambling offering, I think you're going to see a push to get expanded gambling in online in Nevada. I just wonder, because there are so many other pieces in play, if the Wynn's and the MGMs are going to worry more about getting into New York, getting into Texas, and Nevada for the online piece of it is going to be a bit of an afterthought, unfortunately.
Well, we all know California, Florida, all those are the golden.
Yeah, those are harder hurdles to get over, but the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow is much, much larger.
Well, since you brought up Sands, you know, Sands is leading the Reverse America's Wire Act. And we all know that the Wire Act plays a role in this area. Tonya, do you think that with Sands now being sold and with a lot of the major companies such as Wynn, Caesars, and everybody jumping into online gaming, do you think it makes a big difference to the industry moving forward?
Absolutely. I think it's going to help push the lines. You know, with the Wire Act and the changes and the qualification that it's, you know, the Wire Act applies to poker and sports betting, not necessarily, you know, online casinos. And it also applies to, you know, the internet itself as an interstate medium. And just because the internet crosses state lines doesn't mean that the regulations of how a platform is set up is how it operates. You can truly, you know, segment that to be statewide, to be able to create that online experience without crossing the state lines, which then makes it interstate. And the crazy thing is that, you know, the Wire Act was written, you know, many, many years ago, before the technology that we have today was available. So I think it just, there's ways of interpretation, and I feel like with our, you know, existing president and the attorney general, I think it's going to be more of a forefront discussion to be able to create that online gaming, either from a federal or state component.
Well, to
Yeah.
add to your point, Tonya, the New Hampshire case that is challenging the Trump administration interpretation of the Wire Act got yet another victory very recently. And while that case isn't necessarily dead, as you mentioned, President Biden is just not interested in pursuing it and believes that Wire Act only applies to sports betting. So I think some states that were worried about that, Pennsylvania was very conservative in its rollout because of it. Now that they know that the courts are probably done with that issue, you'll see more action.
Correct.
Yeah, and historically, there has been resistance from land-based casinos, thinking there might be cannibalization and what have you. But for the foremost, do you think that the pandemic has caused a different type of mindset?
A little. I think, we've seen sports betting is not really an additive for tax revenue just because it's such a low margin industry. And so many of the states have setups where bonusing dollars really cut into the amount of taxable income that is getting taxed in these states. But in states that have made some headway in online casino before, I think you do look at the fact that New Jersey basically stayed afloat with Atlantic City down for the pandemic with online casinos. And it doesn't hurt. It may not be everything you need to get it through, but it is a factor that does help a little.
Do you think it's an addition?
I'm sorry?
Yeah, and I also, go ahead.
Do you think it's an addition to the industry?
Oh, for sure. I don't hear anybody making the cannibalization argument anymore because it's just really hard to substantiate these days. But Tonya, you were going to add something?
Tonya, what are your thoughts on that?
So, I mean, from my perspective, the pandemic did change the way people accept online gaming, especially from a social gaming experience. I know with working with Aristocrat, a lot of the social pay to play revenues help supplement whenever they weren't able to, when casinos weren't particularly purchasing slot machines for the physical slot floor. They weren't doing the investments they had previously from the land-based perspective, because with that unknown of the pandemic, it really enabled more people to accept gambling, even from a social standpoint, where online gaming really could have, if it was available at the time, I really feel like the adoption would have been, quite the opportunity, especially whenever people are tied to their homes. But I think because the pandemic forced us into this, I do believe that, operations and manufacturing and, just general gamers are going to be more likely to participate whenever online gaming does come about.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that too. I mean, we all see Wynn, MGM, Boyd, Caesars, Nugget, all these other different companies that are moving into the online space in other states. Why not Nevada? How about you, Jessica? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, like I said before, I think the biggest issue is for Nevada is just, I don't know where on the to-do list Nevada is going to be when there are big states out there that are very close, like Ohio, that the local population is so strong. I think though, one thing that we could get done very easily is to remove the in-person registration requirement on sports betting. I think you're going to get some pushback from stations, the local casinos that benefit in other parts of the state from having, a lot of different options for in-person registration. But that issue is one that I can see falling first a little more quickly than legislation passing.
And I agree with that. Having lived through that era, I can tell you that has been quite the problem. What do you think about for online gaming, Jessica? I mean, like we've only had poker and
only one operator too. With kind of the bad actor clause in place when we passed poker in Nevada, that left Poker Stars out. So Ultimate Poker from the Fertittas tried and failed. The South Point product tried and failed. Now, in other bigger markets, we see that you can sustain 2 or 3, and with the compacting we're seeing in other states, it's additive, and it's more of a carrot to dangle to have more people get involved in poker. And I think you've seen some movement on the application front, but online casinos is just the one, you know, and maybe Tonya, you can speak to this better than I can. I just don't know with the tourist element of Las Vegas, how much casinos would prefer someone be in their room playing casino on their computer versus down on the floor, where then they're going to go out to eat and then they're going to go see a show. I don't know the calculus of how much they might potentially actually have a little bit of cannibalization.
Well, before we go to Tonya, I'm going to tell you that from my own experience, I'm thankful for online gaming and for the various states because, you know, March 15th of 2020, sports betting was literally obliterated, and we really just didn't have much, right? So, you know, Tonya, with all these different companies that are jumping in to the various operating aspects of online gambling, whether it be sports betting, whether it be live dealer or the other areas. Do you see that as an additive or a detraction from the bottom line for each of these casinos? Do you think they're cannibalizing from themselves, or do you think that they're actually gaining ground by having online aspects of the casino?
Yeah, so from an online perspective, I truly feel like it's an added benefit to the brand. The more engagement that a player has with a brand, the better they're going to be, and the loyalty to that brand is also there. You know, with different states opening up online gaming, they're gaining a larger reach of customer loyalty because they have that added benefit. So I feel like by not having that benefit in other states, I feel like players are going to spread their wallet across different brands versus being loyal to one that they're used to going in to gamble at. And I really feel like the more reach and the more interaction that players can have to a specific brand is truly where they're going to find the biggest opportunities. I mean, this happened whenever, I mean, just from a marketing perspective, you know, it was always direct mail before. Well, then here comes email and websites and, you know, SEO and, you know, mobile SMS messaging. Well, truly by having further engagement with the brand, the wallet of the individuals increased because that brand was always top of mind. And I did a lot of studies when I was at Caesars of, well, is there too much interaction? Well, when we really looked at the data, we found that truly the most worthiness customers and the customers that were of the highest worth were truly those who were engaged in all mediums.
Right, and you spent a lot of time in the social market, and Jessica, you spent some time with WSOP. I mean, Caesars obviously was one of the early adopters with this. Now knowing that Win is going into the market, whether it's WinBet, and you know, when we say the market, we're not necessarily talking about Nevada always, right? So you know, but we got MGM, we got Boyd, we got Caesars, we got Nugget, got all these different other companies that are moving into the marketplace. Is there room for everybody?
In Nevada, I'm not sure. You know, we're seeing in these different states that there are certain thresholds that just become oversaturated. But I think, you know, in some of the more open situations like Indiana, which is a fairly small state population-wise, they can sustain a dozen plus brands and still have a healthy ecosystem. And I think for the sports betting element of it, at least, the seasonality of people coming to March Madness, they can skip the line, they can get on their phone, they can bet. That will have, you know, a big impact on handle. with poker, we found it was very seasonal, that in most of the year, playing on WSOP.com, even with players in New Jersey compacting with us and showing up on the same site, it's not a huge revenue booster. We're talking maybe $1 million a month. They don't give us NGC exact numbers, but when the World Series of Poker was running, they would bust out of a real event and then be like, oh, well, I can hop online and play. And it was really booming on the online side. I think with sports betting, you're going to see it. With poker, you're going to see a boost, and it would be able to be sustainable. Online casino is the one I just am not as willing to say there's room for everybody.
Yeah, coming from the sports betting area, and having the first smart app out in the marketplace, seeing about 65-70% of the bets coming over mobile, we know that it's been effective. So it's worked really well for us, and it's a lot more cost effective, and it's a lot easier to write a bet over a mobile phone. In fact, I did it last night for the Golden Knights game, and it didn't work out exactly the way I wanted it to, but it was an easy experience. Everything has been a little bit easier in terms of gambling. Do you see any problem issues there, Tonya, with regard to mobile gambling as in regard to in-person gambling?
Yeah, I just feel like a more well-rounded customer is going to be more better for a particular property. I know we talked about the issue of in-person sign up. I think technologies are really getting a lot better in regards to identity validation and geo-fencing and KYC checks. I feel like from a technology standpoint, we're getting to a better place where we can better enhance that player experience for signups. Which I feel like today is very much a hindrance for people to get signed up. But I think it's a great opportunity. I don't necessarily see that every brand would have an application, but I think that in a period of time, it would likely go to some of the larger players that would be the operations within Nevada. But I think it's a great opportunity from the local standpoint. I mean, players are very loyal to Boyd and also to Station Casinos. And I feel like by having that commitment to their customers to have that increased experience, it's just going to drive that much more loyalty to the local operations also.
Great, thank you. And I gotta tell you, it kind of does hit hard because it does make it a little more difficult to register in Nevada than it does in New Jersey. What are your thoughts on that, Melissa?
Well, so with the online betting, what's interesting is you mentioned, 65-70% online in Nevada. In New Jersey, it's actually closer to 90%. And in most states with online sports betting, Iowa recently just phased out of its in-person registration requirement. Illinois has had its suspended in the wake of COVID, and they're doing, mid to high 80s in online betting. So truly, I mean, the part that's hard to take seriously about Nevada online sports betting is this in-person registration requirement, because it is such a hindrance that you can tangibly see just how many more bets are taking place online in other states, because it is a 5-minute process, and the operators are very comfortable, as Tonya mentioned, satisfying KYC protocols with an online format.
Yeah, and I agree. And for those of us that are not in Nevada, I guess we should explain the fact that at least one time you have to go into a casino to show your identification, and it'd be located within that casino to be able to open an account, which makes things a little bit rougher, makes things a little bit uneasier where other states aren't requiring that. do you, how long do you see, I'll take a little bit of predictions here. Do you see over under 2022 before we can start taking bets, not only online, but also be able to register over the mobile phone or computer?
End of 2022? Do I get the full year?
Yeah, I'll give you the full year. Go ahead.
I would optimistically take under, simply because I believe that this is just a regulatory adjustment, that you amend the regulations to remove that in-person registration requirement. And that's a lot easier to do than to draft a bill, get a bill through 2 different legislative bodies, and then signed into law by a governor. So I think that in Nevada is an easy enough thing to accomplish that I'll take the under.
And Tonya, what do you think?
Yeah, I also have to go with the
I know you
the
like
under.
that, so tell me, what's your over or your under?
Yeah, I definitely would have to say the under. As she had mentioned, that particular component of, making online registration easier, I think that's absolutely an easier than getting online gaming in place. But I think with the new legislation and, with the changes that are coming in 2021 and already have come, I feel like it's much more optimistic, and that, we have a great opportunity for it here.
Well, I have to agree with both of you, because I feel it's the same way. I feel that we're moving in a direction where it's the technology is there, the geolocation is there, the KYC is there. We should have the ability to do that. So why the holdback on online gambling? All right, let's start with you, Jessica. Tell me why do you think we're holding back online gambling? Is it because we feel that it's hurting the industry? Do we feel like it's not the addition to the industry? I mean, when you take a look at New Jersey, I mean, they're doing really well. You take a look at Pennsylvania, they're moving in the right direction. Virginia, I mean, everybody, Tennessee, I mean, there's so many different areas that are moving in the form of online gambling. Why is it taking so long for it to happen in the gold standard here in Nevada? What are your thoughts, Jessica?
I think part of it was up until probably the fall of PAPS and the next 2 years. So that takes us up to 2020, basically. Like I said, most of these companies actually didn't have like a fully integrated online casino with poker, sports betting, and casino to offer. So there just wasn't much interest beyond Caesars and a couple others to get that up and running. And then I think now they're probably spending such exorbitant lobbying money in other states that just taking resources and funds to get online casino in a state with such a small population as Nevada, where it's probably going to be less additive than a state like Pennsylvania or New Jersey, that their priorities just aren't on Nevada for until some of these other pieces get dealt with.
And Tonya, you've been involved in this since social days. I mean, I remember going way back with you when you first started in that area. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's just, building the infrastructure and building the, having the resources dedicated to, bring that additional channel on. It's all about priorities in the world of gaming and operations. And, I feel like that's, just a simple fact of resourcing can hold back, but, it's again, it's the priorities of the business. And, I don't think Nevada will disappoint. They've never disappointed from a gaming standpoint. And we are the icon of gaming.
And I think we'd like to stay there. So,
Yes.
I think that Nevada really does need to take a step up and really start examining online gaming, because it is an additive to the bottom line as to where we are at. We're approaching close to the end of the session here. So, what I'd like to get your thoughts on is, what do you think as far as moving forward? Where do you see Nevada with all these other states moving ahead really quick? And I mean, there's some of New Jersey obviously opening up with online gaming, Pennsylvania, a lot of these other states. How do you see Nevada fitting in? I mean, do you think we can catch up? Do you think we're playing a little behind the game? Do you think we need to move a little faster? Do you think we should pay more attention? What are your thoughts, Tonya?
Well, I feel like with the pressures of all the other states going online, we'll definitely escalate that within the state of Nevada, because we want to continue to be that icon, and we want to be the forefront and the leader. So I definitely feel like with other states coming online, it's going to put a bit more pressure on Nevada to make that more of a priority.
I agree, and I hope so. And Jessica, your thoughts?
I think that Nevada will always be, in terms of gaming, the epicenter of the live retail casino world. And that's where we'll always be at the forefront, the newest machines, the newest table games, the best service. I think too, with sports betting, John, you've been in it a long time. The sports betting minds are still in Las Vegas in terms of, the people setting the odds and developing those customer relationships, and the people who really intelligently know how to run a sports book. But I think that Nevada is learning that as Michigan and other states are coming on board, it's not necessarily going to be the epicenter of online online gambling, because without all three elements of it and without a strong population, there just isn't a huge motivator for these companies to put the kind of resources that they would into it.
No, I agree with that. Thankfully, I've got all my friends and everybody coming in for March Madness. So we have a full city this week, that's for sure. So at least for the next few weeks. So I think we've reached our time. Would anybody like to add anything else to our topic today? Jessica, any thoughts, any final thoughts on where Nevada stands in terms of online gaming and how long it's going to take for us to get there? And
I think just to hit home, this is such a transitional time for the gaming world. We have seen that all of the major companies are very committed, be it through acquisitions or in-house, to offering a fully operational online experience with every facet there is to offer. And I think it'll come in Nevada. It's just, we have to get used to maybe not being first in line anymore.
Yeah, and I know you both have experience with Caesars. I know, Tonya, you've done a lot over at Caesars too in terms of marketing. What are your thoughts there?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have to totally agree with Jessica. I mean, we are that icon, and by having that additional component, it's going to keep us top of mind. So overall, I think online gaming is a good thing, and I think it's a good offering to build that loyalty.
I think it's a necessity for our state. I think that we've been bleeding for a while. I know that with Sands being sold and reversing America's Wire Act might be on not the top of the administration's plan. So I'm very hopeful that eventually we're going to adopt this so that we can remain in competition, or at least maybe even as the leader still with online gambling. So I thank you guys for being part of the panel today. I mean, it's been so wonderful to hear the input from both of you. And with that being said, I think we've reached the end of our time limit here. And with that being said, I want to thank you all for joining us. Thanks everybody for watching the SiGMA Roadshow, and hope to be available for anybody that has any questions. Tonya, I think we can post our information, Jessica as well. And with that being said, for anybody who has any questions or anything thereafter, we're available for everybody. So with that being said, thank you for today, and I appreciate everybody's attendance.